Welcome to a special edition of Buddycast. Folks, we have a real treat for you tonight. Trust me, I've talked to this guy beforehand, and he is incredible. Super nice guy, super talented. He showed me a little bit of his work, and honestly, I'm excited for this episode. So please give a warm Buddycast welcome to my new buddy, Chris Herren. Hey!
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Thank you for being on the show. That was excellent.
Thank you very much.
That was excellent. I love the part where you changed it into the little donut, but I love the ending. That was spectacular.
Well, first off, thank you for having me, Nick, and
Most definitely.
I know we talked before, and it's a pleasure to be here and to meet everyone that's out there watching.
Most definitely. You got quite a few views there when you were doing your tricks. So,
thank you.
Yep. Now let's start out. How did you get into magic in the first place?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So just like everyone else, you start off when you're a little kid, and I started off sometime between 5 and 7, and that kind of just trickled into a lifelong hobby. And to be quite honest, I'd never really had the ambition to do magic on the stage or even like this, something that is like a huge presentation, like a theatrical presentation. I just like tricks, just like any other kid. And one of my greatest influences was Harry Houdini. I think that was the first recollection I had of, the first magic I ever seen, and that stayed with me for the rest of my life,
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I really started magic, was that first, seeing of the first magic trick from Harry Houdini. And I have a bunch of posters of him, and he's just he's just a legend, a superhero to me.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Harry Houdini is one of your influencers. Do you have any other influencers, like any other famous magicians that have influenced your career?
Definitely. So my my mentor, his name is Jeff Mcbride. He is in the Magic Hall of Fame, and he's the Guinness World Book record holder for fastest hands. I used to watch him, as a young kid, and he'd do these card manipulations, stuff that I love seeing. They just appeared in his hand, and you would see like multiple cards falling out of his hands, and then he used a mask. And it wasn't necessarily the cards or the sleight of hand that he was doing. I had seen him on TV, like national TV, I think sometime in the 90s, and he used this mask and he made this mask come alive. And that really touched me. I said, that is a very, very powerful, sort of magic that he's doing. And I was hooked. So I followed him throughout my teenage years, all the way up until my 20s, when I watched him the first time ever live in Las Vegas. And he was performing there at this place called, Caesar's Magical Empire at Caesar's Palace Hotel. And he was performing this act called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's where he's pulling coins from this bucket, and they're just endless coins. He was going to do that, and I could recognize that that's what he was about to do. And out of all the kids, out of all the adults, he pulls me back up on stage. And at the very end of that performance, he gives me a wand, and he says, the masters, the tradition of the magicians is to hand a wand or the magical knowledge down to the apprentice so he could carry it on. And that was like 20 some years ago, and I kept that wand with me. I didn't meet up with him till later on, maybe 20 years after that, in a class in Las Vegas that he was teaching. And and so he would be the primary influence for me, as far as my influence in style, influence in my approach to magic. It's Jeff Mcbride. And if you ever get a chance to watch him, you will see a real master at work.
Let me ask you, do you still have that wand today?
I do. I absolutely do. And someday I'll show it to you. It's locked up in a case, and there's a little message on there that is inscribed. And what's on the wand is it says, "What you believe is real is real." And at the time, I didn't know what that meant, But as I started performing, it made more sense. When you're on stage, people they don't really subscribe to the fact that magic is real. And to me, it's entertainment. But as a magician, you should believe what you're doing is real, so that people can feel this, this truly magical experience. Because if you don't believe it's real, then how can someone else feel it's real? And that's the real magic, behind that message. There was a lesson there, and I'll always remember that. I use that principle till today. Like,
it begs the question: do you believe in magic?
I do. I do believe in magic, but maybe not in the sense that other people think. Do I believe in the sense that magic is a feeling and an emotion that can really, astonish or inspire someone? Yes. And I really look at that, if you're seeing an illusion and it sparks this emotion within you, whether it's to be happy or sad or even just with laughter, to me, those moments are magical. Because when you go through those moments, at least for me, my teacher would always tell me, he says, magic is medicine and magic heals. So it's a lesson, like, you could change someone's day by doing a simple trick, and And honestly, Nick, I think that is the theme of everything I do on stage. Is I want it to, connect with you in some way, you know, because I believe that's where the magic lies.
Most definitely. So what's it like performing?
Well, I still get nervous, no matter, even for here, I get nervous. There's always going to be some technical difficulties along the way. I think, you should always expect that something's going to go wrong. But I think what I really look forward to is being able to express my voice and, my authentic voice to people. And for me, it at the very end, when you finish, that's the most gratifying part of it, right? And I know you perform as well as a comedian, and even with the podcast, it's gratifying that you kind of connected with people in that way. And so that's what I look forward to. And sometimes they don't connect, but that's okay. I think just the simple fact that I was given the privilege and the honor to just be here to share magic is more than I can ask for.
Definitely, absolutely. So how did you come up with your character Faust?
Well, that's a great question. When I was sick, maybe about 10 years ago, with cancer, and I went through chemotherapy. I went through the whole shebang with treatment, and I knew that if I was going to get through it, if I was going to get through this ordeal, that I wanted to write about it. So during cancer, I started writing about this fictional character. But I think later on, I started, becoming influenced by this character named Faust, and it's a book from the 16th century about a man who sells his soul to the devil. But I asked myself, why would anyone do that? Why would anyone sell their soul to the devil? And so I put myself in that position, and I came up with the reason that the only way I would do that if I was desperate to change. And at that time, because I was going through cancer, that really, really connected with me. Would I change my situation? And hypothetically, if there was a situation like Faust, where this, deal was made, between me and the devil, would I take it? And it's a good question that I had to ask.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of pondering it, in like a realistic sense, I wanted to take those emotions of that desperation that Faust had and place it into this character. And through the years, it just kind of gravitated into what I have now. And Faust is really a daydreamer. That's who he is. And everything that you just saw was a dream, about who he wants to be, But that's absolutely a great question. And that's the gist of my character, Faust. Now, it doesn't pull directly from, the book itself, but it does pull on the emotional aspect of who Faust was and what he was going through. And I love those particular types of stories where you have this sort of hopelessness, but through the hopelessness you have some light.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned desperation. We're kind of in a desperate time here with COVID-19.
Yeah.
We're just in that time frame of just do we want to come on top of this, kind of like you with cancer. Let me ask you, how you feeling today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm a clean bill of health. And that's the thing. I wouldn't be doing magic if it weren't for just it took me years to rehabilitate. I had developed a Parkinsonian tremor in my hand where I would shake constantly, and I had to give up magic for several years. Like I put magic away. And but it was always in my head. I always read about it. I always watched it. And I think my wife, she like encouraged me to take a magic class. And at the time I was intimidated because it was someone who it was being taught by someone who I had admired and saw as a hero. Well, when I went, it just sparked this whole, this kind of like new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And with the people that I was down there, it's called the Magic and Mystery School. They supported what I wanted to do, and it was wearing a mask and doing pantomime and stuff that I love. And fortunately, I had a good teacher that brought me to where I was today. And going forward from that, I remember that wand always, because I feel like it was the beginning of my journey. Because 20 years later, I was on the stage doing my Las Vegas debut with my teacher, who I admired and was my hero. And just like how you were introducing me into the show, he was doing that, and I was literally tearing up in the backstage, because I asked myself, how did I get here? How did I get here? But I stopped asking, and I just said, this is magic. This right here is magic.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back to my older question, I was gonna ask you real quick. What? Let's get this question out of the way.
Yeah, sure.
How do you think COVID has impacted the magic industry? Like, how's it impacted you personally?
Yeah, definitely. I think and I think I can speak for a lot of magicians out there, especially my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I think, with our schedules, most of us had schedules going out to the next year doing shows. And when COVID hit, it didn't really kind of settle in with us. And then all of a sudden, everybody canceled. Literally everyone canceled at least my shows. And you're sitting there thinking about, okay, what now? Do I just wait? And the waiting just kept on going into more waiting. And my friend, his name is Jonathan Molo, who would be a great guest, by the way, for you. He started this thing called the Virtual Magic Show. And I didn't know anything about Zoom. I didn't know anything about StreamYard or anything like that. And he says, hey, come on, I want you to perform and do this thing. And I had to relearn all the technology involved in it. And it just started taking off. And to be quite honest, since COVID, I've been so busy doing these shows on Zoom that I never would have, thought about doing ever prior to COVID. In fact, I have a show tomorrow with two group of gentlemen by the name of Dean and Rick. They're from the United Kingdom, and it's being hosted by Jonathan Molo. And that's going to happen 11 a.m. Pacific. But it shows you it's the industry for me. Some have adjusted real well to this, and some haven't. But I always yearn for the live performance. You just can't replace that. You just can't.
No.
But I think this is a platform that we have to accept as being there now, and I think it's okay. I really do. But I think when live shows start appearing again, then most definitely, you can't replace that sort of human connection with people being right in front of you.
Truly, it's like comedy. You can
Yeah.
do 50 virtual shows, but at the same time, you miss that laugh. That laugh is like a hit for you. Like it's like a whip of the best smell in the world. It's like
Right.
you can see people type in LOL on the screen, but no one. It's like hearing that laugh inside. It's like music to your ears.
you definitely feed off of that energy, and so I think it's very hard to feel it here in this platform, but I'm not saying that it's completely impossible either. It
Mhm.
can definitely, you can connect with people through this medium, and I kind of look at that as a task that I try to study all the time. How do I connect with people? And I believe that it's very possible through movement and gesture and just my interaction with people through the screen. Is it the same? No, but it definitely is an attempt to do that.
Mhm. Now, did I hear you right? Are you part of any organizations or anything like that?
Yes, so I'm part of the Magic Castle in Hollywood, which is a private club in Los Angeles, and it's a great place if you ever get a chance. And it's invite only, but if you are a magician or just an enthusiast of magic, it's probably something you have to see at least once in your life. There are several rooms in there, and you will indulge in mystery and magic all throughout that place. It's an old Victorian mansion. It dates back to the early 1900s. So there's a lot of history in there. A lot of great people from magic have been in there and continue to go in there. And for me, you have to audition to get in. Getting in led to so many great friendships for me, but yet it was a great place to learn and hone my craft from other seasoned magicians there. And that's the great thing about the Magic Castle, is that they hold lectures all the time. So if you're very serious, then it's the place to be. I'm also part of the Magic Circle in London, which I just recently got into, and I haven't been there yet. But to give you an idea, it's like over 100 years old, and some of the membership there, it's it's a lot of the who's who, and I think Prince Charles of England is a member, and it's quite a legendary place, if I may say.
That was beautiful. I hope to see that place one day. You'll have to give me an invite.
Oh, you're always invited, definitely, and we'll talk on the side about that, and I'll give you a personal tour.
Ooh, now I'm interested.
Yeah.
Now let's go to a feel good story. Give me a good feel good story about you performing, like a story that's always stood out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think performing, I think feeling good always happens when you've connected with people. And I think the more and more I get to know this particular character, and the more I'm able to share it naturally and organically with people, I'm very satisfied with with the performance. But I mentioned it briefly before. Anytime I perform with my teacher, he he brings this energy to the stage that I feed off of. And the first time that I performed with him was in his club at the Vegas Wonderground, and it's in Las Vegas, off strip. But when you get a different sense of magic there, you get different styles, and he brings a very theatrical magic, but yet it's kind of like, he describes it as Burning Man meets the magic community, or Burning Man meets Vegas. But you get that sort of eclectic artistic vibe in there, and once you walk in, it's unlike, to me, any other Vegas show. It's really a feel good place. I love performing there. Every time I go there, I come out with a sense of, this is why I fell in love with magic. And like I said, when he introduced me, he made such a huge deal that it was my first time in Vegas. He did an act, his old card manipulation act that he hadn't done in years, just so that he can introduce me onto the stage. And that night I had felt like, this guy is really, really making it memorable for me, and that in itself was a magical experience for me. I don't remember, a lot of my performances anymore, because they're, they just, you do them and you do them and you do them, but that one sticks out to me the most. It was a special moment for me,
It sounds like he truly believed in you,
and he still does. So I still work with him. For the last 3 years, we've been working on this particular act for the last 3 years together. And it really started taking off once he got his hands on the idea of where I wanted to go with. And I think that's a very in many cases that's a traditional kind of relationship between student and master. At least from magician's sake, there's always the master and the apprentice. And if there was any sort of advice I would give to anyone in the field, I would say find a teacher and be mentored by that teacher. And
Hey, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So let me ask you this part. What's your favorite trick of all time?
Well, why don't I just show you what the favorite trick is?
Of course. Let's do it.
And I will step off stage. This is called, for you, Nick, it's called the broken music box. And it is one of my dear favorite effects.
Prepare to be amazed, buddies.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. The broken music box.
That was beautiful. You know what? Let's keep the show going. Do you have any other tricks you could perform for us today?
I do. I absolutely do. Now, if I may, I like to preface it with a story. So everything that I've done thus far represents a very old and ancient art form called pantomime, and basically it's the art of storytelling without words. And my character Faust is a daydreamer. So what you were about to see is my final performance for all of you, and it's called The Toast. And I do hope you enjoy.
Absolutely.
I've no time to grab. Keep my lips red with your simple cigarette. And your head high, and your tears dry. Again without you, guy. I'm back to what I knew. So far from all we've been through. And you to tread a true track. Your words are slack, and you go back to black. We only say goodbye with words. You died 100 times. And I go back to her, and you go back to, you go back to black. I knew you might. It's not enough. I love you and you love her. And life is like a pie. Tiny penny rolling up the walls inside. We only say goodbye with words. You died 100 times. And I go back to her, and you go back to her. We only say goodbye with words. You died 100 times. I go back to her, and you go back to her. You go back to black.
Thank you, Nick.
That was amazing. Where'd that stuff go?
Right here.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So even our audience like that, you know?
Thank you. I really do hope that the audience enjoyed. I know it's a different kind of magic, but it definitely is an expression of what I love most, and I do hope that everyone enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. The interview's not done yet, my friend. I got 2 more questions for you.
Yes.
The first being, if you could have your audience donate to any charity of your choice, who would you choose and why?
Well, it would be DeMilloAcademy.com. And they're a magic organization that I'm part of. And
Mhm.
essentially it's to get, the kids to learn this particular art form or any other variety art form. Sometimes there are kids out there and maybe even young teenagers that aren't financially able. And so DeMillo Academy is a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3 organization, which means you get tax exempt if you donate, but it's affiliated with a lot of the other prestigious magic schools. And I think that it has a great cause. And at least look them up. You'll see me involved with them in a few shows. What we do here is a lost art, and I hope that this academy and many others continue to keep that legacy by passing it on down to our future generations. And that would be my first pick there, Nick.
Most definitely. Now you mentioned future generations, so it brings up the perfect opportunity for my final question here.
Yes.
What is your advice to anyone who wants to become a magician, you mentioned something earlier about a mentor, but what's
Yes.
your ultimate advice for anyone who wants to be magic or is practicing magic even?
Yes, I think there are 2 ways to go about, magic. One is the first way where I approached it as a hobbyist and an enthusiast. And that to me will always be something part of my heart. And I think if you just start there and find some kind of magic that you like, let the magic take you on this journey to wherever it may lead. Because initially for me, it was just a hobby. And I didn't think anything about doing this and performing for a public. But it took me and it grabbed hold of me, and I was attached to this journey of magic. And if you do decide to go to magic on a professional level, then there are books, there are mentors out there that can hand down the knowledge to you. And it for me that would be a real treat just to see the legacy and knowledge of magic being handed down. So let the journey take you, whatever it may be.
A lovely answer. Thank you so much for joining us here on Buddycast. I had a blast watching you do magic. I learned a lot from you. I'm sure our audience has done the same. We thank you so much for being here and can't wait. If you ever have any shows or anything coming up, let us know. We'll be glad to help you out, So,
Thank you, Nick.
yep. Thank you again. And as I tell all my buddies on this show, thank you so much for tuning in. My advice to you, go be someone's buddy. And we will catch you. Yep. We'll catch you next time here on Buddycast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.